Alright, y'all. Y'all have heard many tales about it. You've heard different stories, and everybody keeps asking, like, what happened? Like, why did these two fall out? And like, it's just crazy. Really. It's two guys that were friends. Sean Puffy Combs and Suge Knight were friends. You can call him P. Diddy now or whatever. They were friends. When Bad Boy first got started, they were like a East Coast Death Row. Like Suge met, I forgot where exactly they first met and all that stuff, but when they met, they clicked right away, man. He loved Puffy. When Suge would come to the East Coast, he would go right to Bad Boy offices. He'd go right to Bad Boy offices and get up with Puffy. They threw parties together. You don't throw parties and put your name with somebody if you don't like them. And they worked with anything they wanted, you know, like as far as the business and how things was running. Like, they had access to everything. Like, anything Death Row, they was cool with it. You know, they were like, and Suge even told him, like, man, you know what I'm saying? You're going to make a Death Row out here on the East, man. Bad Boy going to be like the Death Row, man. That's going to be our other family. You know, y'all, man, they were tight. There was no misunderstanding in that whatsoever. So all of a sudden, we have a situation so all of a sudden we have a situation where there's a problem. You know, and the problem being is you got too many parties being thrown, too many attitudes to manage that's on your team. To this day, nobody really knows what started the argument. But let's go to the Atlanta nightclub incident. And this is what happened. And everybody gonna keep hitting me up. Bear with me, people. As I silence the phone. Like, Suge Knight came out. He saw Biggie. They met Snoop, met Daz, met everybody. Then, all of a sudden, they throwing another party together. Suge is coming to the East Coast. They was going to put a party together in, I believe, in Atlanta. And all of a sudden, like, Puffy didn't get there till like late. He had to go take care of some business with his kid. Puffy get there, and his buddy, Wolf, is already there. So Wolf already at the party. Suge's already been there with his buddy Jake. So they're sitting there, and in the club, Puffy show up. He has some girls. He go over there. He has a drink. You know, he chilling. Everything good. He's about to go home. He was about to get in the limo, and he hear the arguing going on. And it's with Suge. He can hear Suge's voice, and he can hear another guy voice over there. And instead of going home, Diddy said, let me see what I can do to help. He goes over there and says, what's going on? And when he went over there and said, what's going on, he went up to Suge to try to say what was the problem. It was a sound. BAM! And he turns around, and there's what's his name, guy on the floor. And as soon as he's on the floor, Puff like, oh my God, they trying to get the guy help. And Suge looked right at Diddy and was like, I think you had something to do with this. I mean, right off the bat. And he's like, what? Like, I could have been shot just like you. I'm standing right here next to you. We both could have got shot. He didn't even know what the situation was. Didn't know what caused it. But because he was friends of Diddy, Suge felt you had something to do with this. Now, everything else after this point is going to be with the word alleged. Okay, so let's make sure we do that. Okay, allegedly, Suge contacted Puffy because Puffy was trying to reach out to him. And he said, if you came to the West Coast and your boy got shot, you best believe whoever made that mistake to raise a gun at one of my friends and shoot them, they're going to be delivered to that person in a box. So you do what you got to do, but that dude got to get delivered to me in a box or a bag or whatever. Allegedly, that was said. And Diddy was like, I don't do that. That's not finna happen. I'm not finna do that. I'm not finna go over there and do that, man. I sell records. That is not my job. And from then, they had a problem. And it was going to be a problem that was only going to be fixed by blood. So in 95, at the Source Awards, when he got up on the mic, and of course you've seen it by now on tape, and he was like, anybody want to be an artist and remain an artist who don't want the executive producer all on the video, all on the records, come to Death Row. Now, they had a mixtape that Biggie did with all Death Row beats and everything. And they thought, like, this was going to be a response. But that was later on, though. So, but Big did all those freestyles on them Death Row track reels and stuff. So, that was something somebody took personally later. But the fact that Snoop, Diddy, and Big, they were all cool. You know, they had no problems with them. Even Corrupt was cool with them and didn't want no drama. You know, he's really from Philly. He's a Philly cat. But once those words were said on stage, it set off a chain reaction. Because first, people was a little confused because they didn't know they were beefing. They didn't know it was a problem. They thought he was talking about Jermaine Dupri. Half of them like, man, he just dissed JD. Because at that time, Puffy wasn't really known, or nobody really paid attention. Puff wasn't really rapping. Like, if you saw the producer in the video, it was Jermaine Dupri. With the Brat, he on stage, finished the song. So he was the one that had notoriety for doing it. I mean, Puffy was just really getting started. Biggie and Craig Mack was just taking off. And Faith and all that, they was just getting started. So, you know, for them to even make that kind of, you know, observation was funny because It was everywhere. Like, man, he dissed Jermaine Dupri. And then Puffy came out and was like, I'm the person that statement was made about. They were like, whoa, it was about Puffy. Everybody was, okay, man, there's a problem. And the atmosphere was already tense because everybody, even though those two were cool, they were the bridge in keeping attitudes at bay, because East Coast and West Coast people for some reason had this inner beef of, like, they don't like West Coast dudes and they think they arrogant and they think they better than us, and West Coast dudes think East Coast guys they too arrogant, you know, they attitude, and it's nothing's greater than the East Coast and don't have respect for what they do on the West. Because they think everything started here, so we got to bow down and kiss their butt. So they don't feel that way. But nevertheless, there's a problem. Every time there has been a problem, and because there's been a problem, it's been continuous head bumps. Because at one point, everything was supposed to be cool, but they never reached out to try to do anything before with one another. Because they didn't know how Suge's attitude was, but Puff showed love on stage, and then after the fact, he was trying to mend things with Suge. And Suge was like, yeah, let me and you go in a room by ourselves for 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Me and you, Playboy, let's go in there for 10 minutes. And we'll solve this whole thing right now. We'll squash it. 10 minutes in the room by ourselves. And then Puffy didn't want to do it. He was, nah, man. I don't know where your head's at, man. I don't know where your head's at. He was like, I'm just going to bring security just in case. You know, we can go talk. But security will be in there. You have your security, I have mine. I just want, you know, that's why we can't do that. He, nah, man, we're going to either go in here and we're going to talk. And we're going to talk, just me and you. 10 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Matter of fact, make it 5. And then he could see Suge just, he didn't like the vibe, so he declined to meet with Suge in the room to squash everything. And Suge's like, see, he must know he's guilty because he don't want to meet up in the room. We can squash this whole thing. So what Diddy did after the fact was they had a tour and everybody was busy. Everybody had their situations going on, and Rage was doing her thing, and Suge had some situations he was dealing with. So everybody going their separate ways. Tupac gets bailed out by Suge Knight. Now, when Pac came out, Suge was the only one. He didn't go to Suge Knight. It wasn't like Pac didn't reach out with everybody else. No other record company would touch it. And that's what made it crazy, is that him being Tupac Shakur and all the success he had, nobody would touch him. They's like, oh, he's such a risk. He'll be back in jail. He'll be back in court. He won't be able to sell or promote the records. And he was like, I had a #1 album in jail. I'm in jail with a #1 record. Like, I'm going to beat my case. He's like, I'm not worried about it, but nobody would give him a deal. Except for Death Row. It wasn't like Suge came up there and said, here's the deal, you want to sign it? And he just signed it. He thought about it for a minute. He knew it was a not a good deal when he signed it. I mean, he signed it on a piece of paper, but he wanted out, and that was out. And when he got out, they had some conversations before it happened. And he was not happy. And this is somebody who, wherever they went to, if Diddy came to LA, Suge would come pick him up, and take him out. If he go to the East Coast, Suge would take him out. But he felt slighted by Diddy anyway with the Biggie situation. And he was like, yeah, Biggie, the biggest star in the world. You know what I'm saying? And all this. And Pac felt a certain way about that. So when they had similar interests involved, that's when they really became close. And then once Suge saw that Tupac had a problem with him, he couldn't wait to get him out. And all the budget and all the work went into making him the biggest star in the world. And yeah, you got to come take your spot back. And he always Suge loved Snoop because Snoop was sales. But Snoop was a crip. And him being attached to Suge like that wasn't going to happen. But Pac, oh, no, forget that. That's who's going to hang out with Suge. That's going to be on his side. That's the one that's going to ride with him. So, forget everything else. You going to be with me. So when they got the records together and they talking about Diddy, he was like, I'm going to throw little shots in there because Pac had it all strategized. Y'all didn't understand that. A lot of people didn't. Because Suge wanted him to come out and attack him right off the bat. And he said, nah, you don't do that. Because then you split everybody up right away. He's like, first, you got to let them hear what you got. Like, you got to let them love the songs, and love the artists and, vibe with you. Then you hit them. He's like, because then you just come out and you just start dissing and you separate everybody. And then people who cool with them ain't going to ride with you. They ain't going to want to buy your records. They ain't going to want to have nothing to do with you. Then you killing yourselves. You come out, get the money first, then you hit them. And he strategized all of it. So once the record did like 4-5 million in sales, then he dropped Hit 'Em Up. And anything he needed, Suge got. And Suge, every time they had a problem, it was because of Suge Knight. And what happened is Faith Evans had a problem with Puffy over Al Heyman paying money for the tour. Al Heyman, back then, a lot of people, yes, it's the same Al Heyman from boxing. Al Heyman decided that he was going to pay for the entire tour up front. Something that nobody do except for Al Heyman. Because they don't want to take risk of loss or anything else. He paid Puffy for the entire tour, for Biggie, Faith, all the artists on the tour up front. So the whole tour is paid for. So they ain't got to go try to get their money from day to day. Now Puffy is divvying out the money show by show. He's still paying them show by show, even though Al Heyman's giving them all the money already. So when Faith is complaining about money and she's fighting with Lil' Kim and all this craziness, and they sent her home off the tour because she's fighting with Biggie, Faith, and Lil' Kim and all that stuff. So they sent her home. Like, you going off the tour. You can't keep your attitude. I gotta send you home. Like, one of y'all gotta go, and it ain't gonna be Biggie. He headlining. So you can go home. So they sent her home from the tour. So mad as she is, and she's from LA, she goes out to LA. And then what happened? She records a song with Pac. She recorded like 2 songs. On one song she did some vocals for. And she was working with another like R&B group who was trying to get on with Suge at the time. And then after that, she recorded those songs and put those out. You had the clearances. The songs was done, and they trying to get the clearance from Death Row to approve it. So they waited. Bad Boy is waiting because they can't release anything till they get the approvals, and it's taking like forever for Death Row to get the clearances to allow it to go. And when they finally did, they sent the approvals. It took a long time, but they finally sent the approval for, you know, for the authorization of the song to be on there. And then when that happened, it was like all this stuff started coming out, flying out about her and Pac and this and that. And it was all strategized. So they went and they was like, nah, Bad Boy's like, forget it. And he's like, they didn't even use it. And he's like, they had the permission. The Bad Boy was like, oh, forget it. Like, that's done. That's done and done. The beef is completely on. Nobody gonna deal with anybody over there. And they looked at Faith like that was the dumbest move you could have did. She was like, I didn't know it was beef like that. You know, he told me him and Pac used to be friends. But she knew better. She wanted to do something to try to hurt Big anyway. So she was out there to show Puffy like I could go to LA and be with Death Row. I ain't got to put up with all this. And it backfired and almost ruined her career because they just wanted to use her for what they just did. And that was it. So the stories have been all documented to this point. You know, Tupac got shot, and allegedly they say Suge blamed Puffy for it. And, allegedly a lot of this stuff happened that we're not going to talk about at all. But the guy who was accused of killing Suge Knight's friend, Wolf, was killed himself in 2003 in an Atlanta nightclub. Allegedly by Big Meech and the BMF, who were investigated. But there's no witnesses that would testify to any garbage like that. It was just rumor. So make sure you understand that. You know, could Big Suge have ended all this beef? Absolutely. But you gotta understand, Death Row made themselves, like, Suge has a war type mentality. Either you with me or you not. It's a street mentality, and it's just, that's how it is. You know, there's no in between with him. There's no, I'm just gonna let that go. I'm just ain't gonna deal with him. He gonna let it be known he don't like you. You know what I'm saying? You gonna know right away. It's a street thing. It's putting you in your place where, like, okay, you know we got a problem, so I shouldn't be seeing you. You know, and when you in war mode, everything in the area gets burned up in the way. And that's how the situation was, you know, and he made a lot of enemies on the hip-hop side because of it. Like when Run DMC got their award in 95, and everybody greeted them with a standing ovation inside that Madison Square Garden in the theater. The only ones who did not stand or even acknowledge them, no clapping or nothing, was the whole Death Row Records, that whole little section. And everybody looked at that as disrespectful. And so when people start coming on stage, they start yelling, East Coast, and looking in a direction. So when Snoop got up there like, yeah, we know it's East Coast in the house. Y'all ain't showing us no respect, no love. So they weren't coming to another Source Awards. And they were like, we can't have another one because it's going to be violence. And especially after Hit 'Em Up came out. There were going to be no more Source Awards. So they had to take a time, and they brought it back in LA because it was going to be too much fuel and fire to have it on the East Coast, and none of the West Coast people were going to show up at that time. Too much had happened. So I mean, after that, we know what happened. Alright, well, we caught up.